This act of kindness segment is sponsored by the folks at the Creek House in the heart of Granville Island. They encourage you to open up your heart and reach out and help someone in need.
Well, we find ourselves at the wonderful Sandbar restaurant with our favorite kindness ambassador. We have David McCann back with us for our most recent kindness segment, Giving Back as you always do. We have a very special guest that you have brought on with us today. First off, I want to say, you're going to tell us a little bit of how you met Mr. Don Chapman, and then we're going to have Jim do an interview with Mr. Chapman.
I met Mr. Chapman at the induction ceremony when I was made an officer of the Order of Canada. And he was getting a Meritorious Service Award from the Governor General, Mary Simons. And he told me a story that is very near and dear to my heart and my family's heart. My father was born in Westport, Ontario, on the edge of the Canadian Shield, and went to war in the Second World War, and met my mother in London. She was an English woman, born in London, and married her. And my older sister, was born in London. I was born in Ottawa. And I always thought they were Canadians, and apparently they weren't. And Don Chapman, I'd like to say a heartfelt thank you from myself and my family for getting my sister and my mother their Canadian citizenship. I had not a clue until I met him at the ceremony. Wow. That he was working on this, and he's done it for almost 1 million other Canadians. Wow. He's an amazing individual.
Well, thank you for introducing us to Mr. Chapman, and we're very excited to hear this incredible story, author of The Lost Canadians. So let's get right to Jim and Don.
Up until a few years ago, most Canadians had never heard of the term Lost Canadian. It refers to 1 million people who are being denied their Canadian citizenship, mainly due to outdated and discriminatory aspects of Canada's citizenship law. Lita mentioned with David that our first guest is Don Chapman. He's the author of Lost Canadians, and Don joins us here at the table as part of our latest Random Act of Kindness. Don, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you, sir. We're going to get into the book. David, you want to kick things off?
I'm just really delighted to have met Don. As I say, my family owes him a debt of gratitude. My mother's buried beside my father in Westport, Ontario. I know she'd be really proud. She's buried as a Canadian citizenship.
Yeah, so they went and fought for this country. They should be remembered as being the heroes and citizens they were.
Yep.
Let's unpack this, because I said to you just before we went on camera, we were talking about the fact that if you ask 10 Canadians, what's the definition in this specific case of lost Canadians, probably most people would have an idea, but it wouldn't be accurate. Explain, if you can, briefly, because we got a lot to cover here, Don. Explain briefly what this pertains to and all the advocacy work that you're doing.
First off, it wouldn't be just average Canadians, it's also parliamentarians.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
But Lost Canadians is really referring to an old discriminatory legislation that's been on the books forever. Mm-hmm. And it was very discriminatory. The actual wording of the law was married women, minors, lunatics, and idiots will be classified under the same disability. And Canada has not yet updated these laws to reflect current charter rights.
David, the one thing that touched me, and when Lita and I said, tell us what your interest is, this really did and does affect you, because your father, a Canadian, married a British woman.
That's right.
And explain how it affected you, and the difference is within a year or two between you and your sister.
My sister was born in London, as I previously said, and I was born in Ottawa. We're a year and 4 months difference in age. And simply because she was born overseas and my mother was with it. And despite the government saying, as they landed in Canada, there was ministers of the Crown that said all the war brides are Canadian citizens. The law was never changed to include them. And Don and Bill C-37 that was passed by the Canadian Parliament, thank you very much, has made them Canadian citizens.
It was 2 bills.
2 bills, okay.
And your next guest is going to be responsible for the second of those bills. It was C-37 and C-24.
Explain to me what's so important about the date, the year 2009.
Well, 2009 was the date that Bill C-37 became effective, and it's ironic because it became effective on, I believe it was the 26th anniversary of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right. April 17th. And on that date, it then changed a lot of the laws, but it also retroactively took away the second generation born abroad issue. So now we have people that have been retroactively had a right taken away from them for citizenship, and that was our latest court case where the government actually said the current Citizenship Act is violating the Constitution or the Charter.
What I really am pleased with is that parliamentarians of all parties right now are willing to correct this final thing. There's a bill coming for upper vote this fall, should happen by November at the latest, and it looks like clear sailing through Parliament, and I congratulate all of them for doing the right thing. I know my mother would bake a cookie for it.
There is a plaque hanging in Canada House in Banff that says Canadian history has been defined as much by the accomplishments of individual Canadians as by the great battles on foreign soil and monumentous changes to our society or constitution. Our final guest, sitting to my right, your left, is somebody you'd put in that category. She has, I think we call her, or maybe some people call her irritant number 2, Dawn being irritant number 1. David gets an honorary irritant title, but she has a personal tie with Dawn and what they've been doing on their journey, also with David, because their stories are similar. David, we welcome Jackie Scott. You tell about your connection with her.
Jackie Scott is like me. I mean, my mother was a war bride, as I previously said. Kids were born, one in England. The rest of the gaggle of my family was born here. And both my mother and my sister weren't Canadians until this amazing lady took up the battle. And, she's like Joan of Arc. She took them on and defeated the Han.
Well, tell our viewers a story, because I think a lot of people are probably watching at home going, this chapter of history, I had no idea. And we're going to get into the sacrifice you made, but start at the beginning quickly with your story.
In 2004, I decided I needed to find my citizenship certificate. My mother had destroyed all the records. She had dementia before she passed. I wrote for my citizenship certificate. A year later, got a letter back saying I wasn't Canadian.
And you've been in the country since the mid-40s?
From the time I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
At that same time, Joe Taylor was going through his issue, the same stories as what we've shared. And so through that, I contacted Don. I got in touch with Don. And without Don, I would not be here talking to you today.
So your father was a soldier?
My father was
Canadian.
a soldier, Canadian soldier in the Second World War. I met my mom in England. Unfortunately, they were told they couldn't marry when I was, while he was in the service. So I was born pre-marriage. But there's a Legitimation Act that allows for people in my situation to be recognized back to date of birth. But the government just had no knowledge. I asked the citizenship case processor at one point, have you heard of the Legitimation Act? She said, no, never had. These people are ruling on our lives, and that should change.
Well, it looks like it's going to change. Bills C-37 combined with C-24. You got to tell people about the sacrifice you made, and I don't want to embarrass you, but the judge wants to side with you, but under conditions, and you say, we can't say it on television, but I think essentially you said not a chance. But you explain briefly what you did.
That's a polite way to say it.
A polite way for television, yeah.
The judge gave us the option to look at it in a different way. And so when I was asked which direction I wanted to go, I said, we can't do it just for me. It has to involve everyone else.
He didn't want to be precedent setting. Is that the phrase you'd use? He wanted just for you. He didn't want this to become something that could be followed by other people.
Right. The decision could have been just for me, and that would have been, I would have got my citizenship at that point. However, my thing was it had to involve everybody that was in the same kind of situation. So rather than do it through, the government decided not to go ahead with pursuing the court case, we did it through legislation C-24. And that's why your mom is also Canadian.
Huge sacrifices people make sometimes that often go unnoticed. And this is, I'm glad that you brought this to us today, Dave.
Well, fascinating topic, David. Again, thank you, our kindness ambassador with our random act of kindness. We want to really thank Don Chapman and Jackie Scott for coming down here and sharing this amazing story. not to downplay your Order of Canada. I know we've covered that. That's, again, you've done some amazing things, and you continue to partner with people that amaze us, hence one of our favorites on the show. We were talking about the Lost Canadians. You can find out a little bit more information on this. We will have an extended podcast happening in the fall. You can find that on our website. And David, last thoughts.
I mean, I just can't imagine you spending 30 or 40 years of your life thinking you're a Canadian, and then you go to apply for a passport or you need some assistance from the government, and they're saying you're not. And your father might have given his life in the service of in the war, or come home disabled, or served. It just made no sense to me. And it's such, I mean, they've done this for over 1 million Canadians. The time and the energy to do this and the money. It's one of the most incredible random acts of kindness I've ever heard.
This Act of Kindness segment was sponsored by the folks at the Creek House in the heart of Granville Island. They encourage you to open up your heart and reach out and help someone in need.